thank you for the invitation to participate in the forum. I'll start with some basic observations. The world faces two challenges. One is to reduce the carbon emissions globally. We've talked about it briefly in the beginning of this session. And second, to maintain an adequate energy supply that meets the immediate needs of the emerging markets in an affordable manner and reduces pollution. I mentioned the globe and the world because the problems are global. They're not just local, and we need to take everyone into consideration before, in every region, before we make policy and before we make decisions. For instance, if you live in a developed economy, you notice, you can't miss it, that the world is committed to achieve a net zero by the second half of the century. Regardless of how one gets there, and clearly there is no solid roadmap to follow, billions and billions of dollars will be spent. How wisely? Not clear at this point. It all depends on the willingness of all participants to carefully analyze and select what can be done in a pragmatic way. Examine the real economics, the total environmental impact, and the technology limitations, rather than focusing on what we wish to be true, but unfortunately is not. Effecting policies to meet the two objectives that I stated earlier, that eliminate currently available solutions and adopt solutions that may only be available 10 years from now, it's a fool's errand. On the other hand, if you live in an emerging economy, you are doing all you can to secure energy supplies to support the growth and prosperity that you aspire to achieve. And you are doing this balancing the economics, the pollution, air quality, carbon content, and typically not in their order of priority. Let me start by pointing out a significant factor, the unprecedented energy demand we are facing today, and why meeting this demand without an all-of-the-above strategy will fail and is failing. 15% of the world's population, and I'm referring to Western Europe, North America, Japan, Korea, consume 40% of the energy produced. The remaining 85%, which by the way includes China, India, Brazil, Indonesia, and Mexico, to name a few, are requiring large amounts of energy to achieve the living standards and prosperity of the other 15%. These emerging markets, mostly Asia, Africa, and Latin America, are not willing, nor should they, to wait 1 or 2 generations to have adequate access to energy, to grow their economies, to improve the health standards and delivery of health services, and to eliminate the migration of their human resources to the developed economies. A glaring and unacceptable example is the continued use of coal, wood, or animal waste as a fuel source for indoor cooking, leading to unacceptable large numbers of deaths of children from respiratory disease in Nepal, for example, and millions of children under the age of 3 suffering from cataracts resulting from particulates produced by the use of these fuels. The statistics are daunting. In our planet of nearly 8 billion people, 1 billion has no access to energy, and more than 2 billion live in energy poverty. This represents a severe lack of social justice, and we should all be committed to correct. And herein lies the real challenge. Lack of electrical grids in some cases, distribution systems in others, financial limitations, lack of human and natural resources, regional divides, and access restrictions, they all contribute to the need of several tools to meet the two objectives the world has laid out. As a representative of the natural gas industry, and as someone whose company is present in all segments of exploration, production, transportation, liquefaction, LNG, distribution, and with a global presence, I find myself in this predicament of watching the patient, in this case the planet, get worse instead of better when therapy options are available and not being pursued, or worse, they're being ignored. Next slide, please. Renewable energy forms, such as wind and solar, represent a small fraction of the world's energy being consumed today, less than 10%. Even when we account for the non-sustainable aspects of these forms, such as mining and infrastructure components that are not renewable, we should try everything we can to increase the penetration of wind and solar into the energy mix. Operationally, though, we have a challenge. Intermittency, seasonality, non-dispatchability, and electric grid challenges mean that we require a fuel to maintain grid reliability and weather events. Batteries may and will play a role in the future, but they're not here today at the scale and cost we need. California, Texas, Germany are recent examples of the problem of relying on solar and wind without an available fuel as backup. Brazil, a country that relies significantly on hydroelectric power for its energy, as a result of a low rain year, which happens on a regular basis, purchased 142 cargoes of LNG from the United States in the last 6 months alone, contributing to the world supply woes we have observed recently. Next slide, please. Fortunately, today, we have a fuel that is low in carbon, abundant, and commercially available at the scale required, can be produced with negligible levels of methane emissions, clean, and providing significant improvements to air quality, safe, usable in many industries other than electric power to produce things as fertilizer, plastics, and other hydrocarbon-dependent consumer products. Easy to manage and distribute, a fuel that can play a role right now to displace coal and the more intense carbon fuels. That fuel is natural gas. It is in electric power and can be deployed with much lower capital requirements than coal, for instance, making it easier to phase it out of the mix that we have. And, excuse me, and when other solutions are available. And it does play the best role in allowing large quantities of wind and solar to be added to the grid. Natural gas can be the best source for producing hydrogen. And when coupled with carbon sequestration, a way to produce hydrogen without carbon emissions. Hydrogen from water can be a challenging task, given the scarcity of water globally and the high electricity needs to produce it in that manner. Natural gas can play a significant role in the work needed to secure the raw materials needed for the options we are trying to develop, such as batteries, advanced wind turbine blades, or solar panels. And most importantly, natural gas can be delivered to the emerging economies to meet their needs today and in the next few years as an alternative to coal until other options become available. It gives us the time we need to complete the work on other possibilities, including batteries, hydrogen, advanced nuclear, smart grids, carbon sequestration, and widespread electrification. In other words, natural gas is a solid partner in the energy evolution to a lower carbon energy delivery. However, and this is a big however, the world community, in particular the developed economies, need to embrace natural gas as part of the solution rather than part of the problem. The irony, next slide please, the irony as we can see in this slide is that the developed economies are telling the rest of the world that they cannot use the fuel that has led to significant carbon reductions in those developed economies and improve their quality. The narrative we have listened to from policymakers in the last 2 years has dried out the capital investment needed to maintain and grow the natural gas infrastructure. This narrative has also dried out the investment in other hydrocarbons, with the consequences we are witnessing today around the globe, qualified by many as a huge energy crisis. Coupled with significant demand post-pandemic, this condemnation of hydrocarbons has been a major reason for the current shortages in high prices. Next slide, please. Ironically, it has also resulted in the increased utilization of coal in the United States, 23%, the first increase since 2013, and in Europe as well during 2021. This is making the patient worse. Let us use the medicine we have before it's too late. What 2021 has taught us so far is that we need an orderly global energy evolution. Otherwise, the solutions adopted by the emerging economies, the 85%, will more than nullify any efforts by the 15% that arguably can afford lower carbon solutions now. Thank you again for the opportunity to participate and offer our perspective. It is our unwavering intent to be part of the solution that delivers energy to the world with the lowest possible and economical impact. Thank you again.
Octavio, very interesting and perspective, so I appreciate that. And obviously, I've been involved in many of the natural gas issues for some time. Um, let's go out a little bit globally. We see that oil and natural gas prices have climbed worldwide. How long do you think this trajectory will continue?
I'm afraid that in many parts of the globe, this is here to stay. As you indicated, I think in your opening remarks, the energy business needs a continuous infusion of capital. We don't just open a well somewhere and it produces without capital investment. The United States, it is likely, we've been predicting this, by the way, for several years, but we don't do a very good job, whether it's policy or industry to really, or consumers, to really believe that things are cyclical and prices will go up if you don't do the right things along the way. The United States is really blessed because even though we had a slight increase in prices of natural gas, we're still so much lower than the rest of the country. And I'm talking natural gas, whether we went from about $3 to 5 or 6, while the rest of the world is paying 30. So we are very privileged in that regard, and we can adapt. So in our case, with a lot of our gas now coming on the margin from shale, we can deploy rigs, and within 6-7 months we have more production. So we expect the prices of natural gas to come down again. The rest of the world is different. The advances in, or the need for oil and gas in terms of exploration of the parts is different, and it requires capital. And like I said, they've been vilified and the funds have dried out. The one thing that happened, Vicky, that I don't think anyone was expecting, we knew this was coming, but COVID happened. That reduced demand in many sectors. But while we were taking that rest, if you will, as some people have indicated, and I like the metaphor, the rubber band on the wheel was getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And as a result, when we kind of came back to a sense of normality, that rubber band just snapped, and the shape was much more of a V shape, very deep V than anyone expected. And the demand is incredible. That's what has led with prices. We are this year using more coal in the United States. Our emissions for the year will be worse because of that. And this is something we should have predicted, we should have taken into account, but we didn't, because unfortunately, we did not take an all of the above solution to the problem of carbonization. And the rest of the world is buying coal, and it's buying wood, and continues to burn other fuels. And the 15% of the world cannot cover all the carbon emissions of the other 85%. So we need to work together globally and do decisions that are regional, as you indicated in your opening remarks, that really cover the needs and allow the rest of the world, as you know, you've traveled, Vicky, it's not just about carbon, it's air pollution. My last slide, I wasn't trying to pick on my good friends in India, but that's the same probably slide that we had in Pittsburgh years back. And again, I'm not picking on Pittsburgh, or I'll say Los Angeles. It was just a widespread problem of air pollution. And we need to address air pollution as well as carbon.
So Octavio, you've mentioned several things, and I'm going to combine probably some of my thoughts and questions here, and let you give the audience the benefit of your thoughts. You know, Tellurian, and as you look at the future, as you look at where we're going, as you in the midst of everything you just said, how are you positioning yourself for the future? I think we see LNG exports thriving over the next several years. And you've talked about drying out of investment. What do you see as the most significant obstacle to the growth of LNG?
I think the biggest obstacle is the fact that worldwide, and it's beginning to happen, it happened in the EU this week, we have to start a narrative that natural gas is part of the solution. And once you do that, we've had instances as a company where certain people, certain entities, certain countries were interested in investing in the United States. But because of the narrative in the United States against natural gas and the sanctity of contracts and FERC permits, they refused to do so. That is a problem we cannot afford. We are positioning ourselves to make natural gas available everywhere in the globe so that they have a choice between burning animal waste in the huts or burning natural gas, between burning coal for power generation and burning natural gas. There will be some places where we have to live with coal, and we're supporting carbon sequestration. We're supporting any place we can put wind and solar. We support development of batteries. We as a company are investing in these things in terms of learning about them, supporting them, making sure the information is available. But ultimately for us as a company, we're making natural gas available around the world because we will need natural gas. There's no other fuel right now until we have something else. And we cannot ask people, as you brought up Africa, I have a special place in my heart for it. But it's about, we cannot have people making homeworks at the light of candles and expect not to have the migrations of people into Europe and other places because they frankly have no future where they are. We need to get these people out of energy poverty. We need to make them have prosperity, have the proper health care. And we're not going to do that without energy. So we're doing our part to get there. We hope others will do theirs.
Well said. Thank you, Octavio, for being here this morning and being a part of our dialogue. So
my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Very much.